Hello, good morning. I'm Dr. Sunaina Hamid. I'm joining on behalf of Sebamed India today with you. I'm a consultant dermatologist in Bangalore. I'm based in Whitefield. I have 13 plus years of experience post MD. I practice both clinical as well as aesthetic dermatology. But today I'm here mostly to speak about the pandemic and how it's affected our lives, specifically how it has affected skin, hair, how it has affected our skincare, how it has affected our day-to-day skincare regime. So I'd like to thank Sebamed India for the opportunity today. To begin with, the second wave, I think all of us know it has been absolutely horrendous. I don't think there's been a single family now that has not been affected, either in terms of a family member that has either fallen seriously ill, a friend whom we have seen has fallen seriously ill, people we have lost. I don't think there's a single individual, organization or company that has not been affected financially by the pandemic. I send out my condolences to everybody who has been hit, who has taken personal losses during the pandemic. I see people joining in. Thank you for joining in. I know it's a Sunday morning. Everybody must be feeling lazy, and the personal fatigue must be a lot as well during a pandemic. Emotional fatigue, mental fatigue as well. So thank you for joining in. And I'd like to once again stress that this is a COVID special talk. So we are specifically taking queries related to COVID, how COVID or COVID illness can affect our skin, how vaccination related queries, how to take care of our skin during a pandemic, especially during lockdown where access to doctors or access to clinic visits is limited at this time. So these are the queries that I will be speaking about right now. So so I see people joining in. Thank you, and I'll be going through the questions, and I'll also be addressing questions that I am frequently getting right now at the clinic on a day-to-day basis. So one of the most common questions that I am getting is, can COVID-19 affect skin and hair? And yes, of course, I mean, a lot of viral infections do cause skin rashes. So in that respect, COVID is not any different. So COVID illnesses, and a lot of people these days coming for unrelated rashes as well are now getting really scared that, doctor, I know I don't have any fever or cold or cough, but I've heard that COVID can also cause skin rashes. So could this skin rash also be a sign that it is COVID? Maybe I'm an asymptomatic carrier, so I just wanted to be sure. So you see, COVID rashes usually come with fever. It's unusual to see anybody with rash and without a fever and assume that it would be COVID. And the fever rash that we see with COVID is usually this red kind of spotty red spots that start from the face and the ears, go down the neck, come down to the chest, back, stomach, going down the thighs and legs. And by the time the rashes reach your legs and your feet, the rash from the face has started clearing up. So this is the typical rash that we see in most viral fever with rash, and that's similar with COVID as well. For older individuals who get COVID, they also get hives. Hives are very itchy. They look like mosquito bite, like bumps on the skin. They come in one area, they may disappear probably in 10-15 minutes, half an hour, and then they come somewhere else. This is more typical in older people with COVID illness. In youngsters and in children, we see COVID toes. You must have heard a lot of COVID toes. In tropical countries like India, we don't see a lot of COVID toes compared to cold countries, but we do still see it. And COVID toes can happen individually, as in a person can have only COVID toes and no other symptoms of typical fever and cough and difficulty breathing. So COVID toes are when your toes get, reddish, purplish, they get swollen, they get a little painful as well. In severe COVID illness, your COVID illness is getting more severe when you get a rash called livido. Livido, it looks like a very angry purplish, this kind of a lace-like pattern that starts forming on your thighs, on your abdomen, on your back, and especially when you get blisters. Blisters are little water bubble, if water-filled, fluid-filled blisters rashes coming on your body, then you know that your COVID illness is worse. Now, not every rash that comes on your body is because of the virus itself. Now, when your body starts fighting the virus, it mounts what is called an immune response. So when your body is really fighting the virus, it gets so agitated and it gets so aggressive that sometimes it starts attacking the body itself. It gets a little confused and it forgets, I'm only supposed to hit the virus, sometimes it hits you. So the rashes could be part of the immune response as well. So on the other hand, some of the medications that we give to fight the virus, these medications itself are known to cause allergic reaction and rashes. What else? On the other hand, sometimes when we do things to protect ourselves from the virus, whether it is repeated hand washing or whether it's repeated sanitizing, or people in healthcare services, when we are constantly wearing masks throughout the day, when we are constantly wearing gloves, PPE kits, face shields, we have skin related problems because of that. We can get mask acne, we can get hand eczema, we can get heat rashes, fungal infections. So that also, when we try to protect ourselves from the virus, that itself leads to some skin related problems. Vaccinations, again we get vaccinations to protect ourselves, but rarely vaccinations itself can cause allergic reactions, etc. And we've also seen that a lot of other unrelated viral infections like chickenpox and shingles and other viral induced skin patterns like vasculitis and pityriasis rosea have become extremely common now during the pandemic. Probably there is some link between how COVID is triggering these other reactions as well. All right. Yes, there's one question here. That's a good question. Can the vaccine cause any skin reaction or a permanent mark in the injection site? At the injection site, yes, what you can expect is pain and stiffness at the injection site, but it's fairly unusual for it to leave a permanent mark there. There is a condition called fixed drug eruption, but fixed drug eruption has not been reported a lot with the vaccine, and I don't think that is something we need to be really worried about. So a lot of people tell me this, that I had the vaccine shot and I didn't feel anything. I didn't have any fever, I didn't have any body pain. Did I really? Was the vaccine, was it adulterated? Did they not take care of the cold chain? And I see these videos online that the nurse didn't inject the vaccine properly. That's all a hoax. First of all, it is perfectly okay to get a vaccine shot and experience nothing. You may be absolutely fine, have no fever, no pain. That did not mean that the vaccine did not work for you. What you commonly can experience is fever, usually 100 to 101 degree for a day or two. You can get body pains, tiredness for maybe up to 2 to 3 days, and the body pains can be fairly severe. You can get at the injection site, it's usually on the left arm, so you can get pain and stiffness in that arm. Rarely you can get allergic reactions and itching and hives, but if you do have fever and body pain, only take a paracetamol, don't take aspirin, don't take anything else. All right. Now, what else? Let's see, any other queries? Yes, one query that keeps coming up is who should not be taking the vaccine? I suffer from hives, I suffer from allergies. Is it okay for me to take the vaccine? Okay, first of all, going to the broad question on who shouldn't be taking vaccine, only if you have a known allergy to any of the constituents or the ingredients of the vaccine, and that's pretty hard to figure out in the first place. Or if you have ever suffered from something called anaphylaxis. It is an extremely aggressive, fairly rare and fatal, often fatal allergic reaction where the entire body gets swollen up, you get choking, you have low BP episodes. If you've ever suffered from anaphylaxis in your life, then you're probably not a good candidate for the vaccine. If you are currently safe, this is a question, is it safe to take the vaccine? Absolutely. There are very few patients for whom the vaccine may not be safe, and I'm getting to that. If you're currently having a fever, doesn't have to be COVID fever. If you're right now having any kind of a fever, then wait till you recover from the fever before you go ahead and get the vaccine. It was earlier said that pregnant women, breastfeeding women cannot get the vaccine. That's no longer true. Pregnant women can take the vaccine. Breastfeeding women can take the vaccine. Of course, elderly people, even people who are 80 years old, 90 years old, having comorbidities, they should go ahead and take the vaccine. Cancer patients can take the vaccine. Patients with stable HIV can take the vaccine. Patients who have had organ transplant, so they may be on medications that have made their immune system almost zero. They need to get a clearance from their physician. Some of those medications may have to be stopped temporarily for a while if the physician feels it's okay. Your condition is not so fragile or so unstable that we cannot absolutely stop the medications. Seek a clearance from your physician and you can still go ahead and take the vaccine. If you're on blood thinners and if you're at high risk of developing blood clots, potentially fatal blood clots, again you'll have to get a clearance from your physician and then you can go ahead and take the vaccine. But other than that, there are really very few people who are not safe for the vaccine. Even if you suffer from allergic condition, urticaria, hives, itchy skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, you can still go ahead safely and take the vaccine. Alright. Can people take vaccine during your period? Yes, you can get the vaccine while you're having your period. You can get the vaccine shots done if you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding as well. So it's absolutely safe to get the vaccine done while you're having your period. Yes, after taking the vaccine, you may have a little period irregularity. Your next period may be a little scanty, and that's absolutely fine. That is just usually for one cycle, and in the next cycle, it will get regularized again. So that's nothing to be worried about. All right. So another question that comes commonly is, doctor, which brand of vaccine should I get? I mean, see, I've been saying this for months now. As soon as the government allows vaccinations for 18 to 45, as soon as you're eligible, please get yourself registered, and as soon as you get a slot, go ahead and get the vaccine. Don't worry about the brand, it really doesn't matter. And once we come up with a vaccine for kids and it gets approved, please get your children vaccinated as well. Yes, potentially those who are frequent international travelers or who are planning to go abroad and get a visa for business or for education, yes, there may be a question that Covaxin is not yet WHO approved. So will that be an issue? But the approval will come through. Similarly, for the Covishield, the second dose, the interval keeps getting extended. It was 4 weeks. It's now, then it became 6 to 8 weeks, then it became 12 weeks. And I can understand that will only probably add to the hesitancy, because people may not have the patience to wait for 3 months to get the second shot. But it doesn't affect the efficacy. Even if you get the second shot 3 months later, the vaccine is still going to be effective. So to that end, I think a lot of people are interested in Sputnik and Sputnik Light, because Sputnik Light, potentially one shot may be enough and you will be vaccinated. Alright, so brand doesn't matter, whichever is available right now. India is a resource poor country. Vaccines are in shortage. Whichever you're getting, please go ahead and take it. Because if you do fall ill and there is a third wave coming, and all indications are that the third wave may be much more aggressive and much more deadly. So once there is a third wave, we will have shortage of hospital beds, ICU beds, we'll have shortages of oxygen, of ventilators, of medication, of vaccine itself. So when you do get a chance to get a vaccine, don't worry about the brand. Alright, so I think vaccine related queries we have covered through most of it. Another query that usually comes is, let's see, let me see the... Right, so one query is that I have just recovered from COVID now, what do I need to take care of? I had a really bad illness. Some people, I didn't have a very bad illness. It was pretty mild, but is there still things that I need to take care of? So it's all pretty simple and straightforward, but you still need to, not take it lightly. First and foremost, nutrition. This is not a time to worry about your diet and your figure. This is the time to really focus on a healthy, nutritious diet that is fairly high on calories and protein. Do not skip any of the medications that your physician has prescribed for you, especially supplements. Don't think that this is just vitamins. I'm done. I'm fed up of popping pills. You have to take your supplements on time. You have to remain well hydrated. Hydration is very important. Rest is important. Your body has gone through a lot. Get enough rest. At the same time, resume light activity as much as your body allows you to. If you have had only mild COVID, you can resume some exercises. If you had fairly bad COVID, at least deep breathing exercises. Train your body again. Train your chest, your ribs, your lungs to breathe deeply, to expand itself again. Do floor exercises, do some yoga asanas if your body cannot handle more. Keep in mind that along with your lungs, COVID sometimes takes a heavy toll on your heart, especially even in youngsters between 20 to 40. So do not tax your heart. This is not a time to do too much of cardio. So take it easy. Do some light exercises. It is very common to experience brain fog after a COVID illness. So it's very important to keep your mind and your memory active. So play games, puzzles, mind games, practice Sudoku, mathematics and all that. So keep your mind sharp and active. A few months ago, I would have said, please go ahead and donate plasma, but the ICMR has now removed plasma donation from its treatment guidelines. Clearly it doesn't work, especially it won't work in our country. All right. Now, yes, so this question is about patients suffering from hair loss and after COVID. This is, now first of all, hair loss is extremely common after any kind of a severe illness. So when your body has gone through a bad shock from a physical illness like a dengue, malaria, typhoid, after childbirth, after cancer and chemotherapy, after any bad illness where you had a prolonged course of medication, after surgery, accident, blood loss, it is common. And yes, so after COVID also hair fall is extremely common. The hair fall can be very aggressive and scary. It usually doesn't happen during the illness. The hair fall usually begins 2 months into the recovery. So treatment for hair fall post-COVID is not very different from the usual hair fall treatment that we do. First and foremost, please focus on your nutrition. A lot of iron, a lot of protein, but take protein naturally from dietary sources. Avoid the whey protein. We would put you on supplements that contain biotin, amino acids, maybe bruised yeast, iron, vitamin B12. We would put you on caffeine-based shampoo. Sebamed has a very good Sebamed anti-hair loss caffeine-based pH balanced shampoo. We would also put you on anti-hair loss serums to apply to your scalp. They usually contain Redensil or Capexil or caffeine-based serums. If you already had a pre-existing background of male or female balding, then probably we would add minoxidil as well. In some cases, the hair fall is really bad. A patient could be losing 300 to 400, 500 hair a day. And usually when we start medical treatment, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the hair fall to come under control. So if the rate at which the hair is falling is much faster than the rate at which medications is working, then yes, if your platelet counts is still good, we could do PRP treatments, or we could do growth factor based procedural interventions to control the hair fall. But nutrition, rest, that is equally important, and controlling stress levels, because to a large extent the stress of the illness itself, if you fell ill and then you passed on the illness to an elderly parent or your child, the guilt of that, the financial stress that the illness puts you and your family through, I think that stress and the guilt also plays a huge role in the hair fall. So you have to forgive yourself and also learn to calm yourself and not go into paranoid mode. All right. Someone's asked you about effective remedy for dark circles. Yes, this is also extremely common now to some extent because of excessive screen time. Now everything is online, everything is digital, even for children. So screen time is playing one role, and also altered sleep cycle. So sometimes out of sheer boredness, we're sleeping in daytime, so we're not getting enough sleep at night. So sleep, nutrition is again, and to reduce eye strain. So if you are living in a probably 4th floor, 5th floor, something like that, do some eye exercises, looking at the largest point that you can see. And then there are under eye serums as well. There are under eye creams that can contain mild kojic acid, or caffeine based creams that can help in vitamin K that can help in improving circulation around your eyes. If you have had blocked nose, post COVID, that can also cause a lot of under eye dark circles. So steaming can help. Nutrition can help as well. If there has been post illness weight loss, dietary deficiencies, then improving your nutrition, improving supplement intake, that can also help with the under eye dark circles. All right. So let's see, are there any more questions? So other question that usually comes is, a lot of people after recovering from COVID pandemic, they say that my skin in general, it has, it cannot be tanning because it was complete lockdown, I was completely at home. But my entire skin has become very dark, it's become very dull, something very odd about it, it's become very dry and parched. That's not very surprising. You have to realize that your body has just waged a huge battle. So everything in your body, your entire energy, your nutrition, or your immune system, everything that was there, your body has sucked up and depleted all of its reserves to fight against a really bad infection. So this is just that. This is the exhaustion of your body that is reflecting on your skin. The skin being the mirror to what's happening inside your body. So it is just a temporary phase and it will get better, but it cannot be just with creams. So external moisturizing is important. Moisturize a lot and your skin will start looking better. But also improve hydration. Have a lot of fluids. This is so simple, but it is again something that people just forget. You're indoors, you're not sweating as much, and then you think that, it's not important to drink water. Have a lot of coconut water. We are in India, so we have access to coconut water. It's very good to balance out your electrolytes. Take your antioxidants and your nutrients, especially during recovery period. So those will also help in improving your skin, and have faith that, post illness, skin looking dry, skin looking dull, a little bit, if you had skin rashes, the rashes all healing up with peeling and exfoliation. This is a temporary phase and this will get better, and supplements and good nutrition and rest will help in making it better. All right. What else? Let's see. Any more questions? Yeah. Supplements. Supplements is another question. So what supplements should I be taking to build up my immunity during the pandemic? Okay, and what about herbal supplements? So yeah, so that is the other question that keeps coming about supplements, because there is a lot of interest these days, especially in India. We have a lot of interest in what's natural, what's organic, going back towards Ayurveda, because sometimes despite all the precautions we take, We can't really, a lot of people, when we are in community transmission, we end up falling sick and we have no idea how. We did everything right, we did the isolation, we wore the masks and the sanitizers. So there is a lot of interest that how can I just build up my immunity? Is there anything that I can do to protect myself, to build my immunity? So yes, supplements do help, and supplements not just to protect yourself from illness, even once you're recovering from the illness, it can help. So the most common supplements that are being prescribed, and which a lot of you also would know about it, is that vitamin C. So vitamin C, 1000 milligrams in a day. It's easily available, it's a chewable vitamin C, not even very expensive. The other is zinc acetate on a daily basis. That is very helpful. The third supplement is vitamin D. So vitamin D can be toxic, so you have to be careful how you take it. It comes in a 60,000 units, either in sachets as a white powder or as a pill, as a yellow colored capsule. So you start with taking it once in a week, probably once in a week for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you can start taking it once in a month for another 4 to 6 months after that. The other supplements is, especially during recovery, your doctor may put you on an A to Z sort of a multivitamin with a focus on vitamin B12. In terms of herbal supplements, see, turmeric is very good, avla is good, Giloy supplements have been found to be helpful in building up your immunity, especially specifically towards viral based infections. Glutathione, licorice, herbal teas, especially in your green tea, if you could add honey, ginger and black pepper for respiratory and upper respiratory tract infections, that can be protective. And hydration. Any kind of viral flu, any kind of pandemic, improve your hydration levels. Don't forget to have your electrolytes, to have your fruit juices, to have your coconut water. That's important. Alright. Let's check other queries, pandemic specific queries. Yes, hands is another question. Yeah. Yes, a lot of people asking about, a lot of questions coming in every day about people, their hands getting really ruined. So to some extent it is because of repeated hand washing and sanitizing. Everywhere we go now, it is compulsory to use a sanitizer before we enter, during touching stuff and as we're leaving the stores. And also during lockdown, a lot of women, now we don't have maids anymore, and not everybody has the luxury of a live-in maid or a washing machine and a dishwasher. So hands are getting really damaged, and even men are complaining about it now because they're helping their wives in the kitchen. A lot of bachelors living alone are doing their own dishwashing and washing their own clothes. So how can I protect my hands? How can I protect my nails, against chemical damage? So first and foremost, you cannot avoid using hand sanitizer. Safety first and foremost. So for people like me who are in healthcare and we end up using hand sanitizer 40-50 times in a day, so it makes sense to wear gloves. So wearing a gloves doesn't mean that you don't need to use a hand sanitizer. You still need to use a sanitizer, but then the gloves takes the impact of the chemicals rather than using sanitizer against bare skin. That is one thing. Second thing is, you get kitchen gloves. Wear your gloves even while you're doing household chores, whether it is doing the dishing or scrubbing the toilets or, keep cleaning the kitchen counters, doing your gardening chores. So wear the gloves. Dexterity gets a little compromised, but then it's a matter of habit, and then you will get used to it. The third thing is, try to organize your schedule or your routine in such a way that you finish all of your household chores in one go. Rather than, women end up doing a bunch of work throughout the day, and women end up getting their hands wet throughout the day. And that becomes a problem. So organize your schedule in such a way that you finish most of your work in one go. And after you're finished with your work, use hand creams. Now the cheapest option you can do is, in the very least, to use oil. Coconut oil, olive oil. Don't forget to apply oil to your nails as well. So nails, this is not the time to grow long nails. Keep your nails short. Don't forget to apply oil to your nails. Biotin, that I spoke about some time back, it's not just good for strengthening your hair, it's very good to strengthen your nails as well. So the nails don't become so thin and brittle and break so easily. And you can use hand creams as well. So Zarina is a good hand cream. Neutrogena has a good Norwegian formula hand cream. So hand creams not only protect your hands from excessive dryness and chapping, it can also, heal hangnails, and it can protect your cuticles as well. So if you protect these hangnails and cuticles, you can protect yourself from nail infection and paronychia. They can be extremely painful. They can even then require antibiotic tablets and all. So vitamin E or coconut oil to massage your hands after you finish your work. Wear gloves to protect yourself and use hand creams. These are the basics that you should be doing. And organize yourself. You need just be better organized so that you don't end up getting your hands wet throughout the day. So hand care is one query. Another very common query, which I'm surprised not too many people have asked today, is about mask acne. So this has become extremely common, and in fact a lot of dermatologists, we are suffering from this as well, because we are coming to work still and we are sitting all day every day wearing masks for 8 or 9 hours in a day. So what exactly is causing mask acne? Alright, a couple of things to keep in mind. One is, the most common thing I am seeing that is poor mask hygiene itself. So I am seeing people wearing surgical masks where you can clearly see that they've been using the same mask for 2 or 3 weeks. Surgical masks are meant to be disposable masks. They were not meant to be used for 2-3 weeks at a time. Fabric masks as well. You have to wash your mask. You have to wash it in liquid-based mild detergents. Then you have to make sure that the detergent is then thoroughly rinsed off from your mask. Make sure that you don't have any detergent particles left in the mask. That itself can cause a problem. The second thing is wearing the mask throughout the day. There's a lot of rubbing and friction against your skin. Then there's increased humidity, because when you're speaking against the mask, the moisture from your own breath is getting occluded against your skin. So because of that, your skin starts producing more oil and sebum, and there's something called follicular occlusion. You have the fine hair of your skin getting rubbed against the mask. So the combination of the increased oil production and the follicular rubbing is why people start getting mask acne. So this is a time where you have to be all the more careful with hygiene. So if we generally say wash your face twice a day, but if you're using masks for long hours, our advice to you would be now to wash your face 3 times in a day. You can start using exfoliating face washes, or you could use a scrub once in 3 days, once in 4 days. I'm a dermatologist. I get chemical peels done once in a month to help in exfoliating off the dead skin. And you have to use a moisturizer. A lot of people think that, I'm getting acne, I will not use a moisturizer, it's going to make the problem worse. That's actually wrong. Without a moisturizer, the rub and the friction against the skin will be much worse. It's about using the right kind of face wash and moisturizer. So use an antibacterial face wash. Sebamed has a brilliant clear face foaming face wash. It's an antibacterial face wash. It really clears out your pores and the sebum and reduces bacterial buildup. Oh, thank you, Mr. Valmini. And what else? Sebamed also has a gel base. It's literally a water-based moisturizer that hydrates your skin without leaving it oily or sticky. There are many other fluid-based calming moisturizers that you can use. But not using a moisturizer because you're having mask acne, that's a bad idea. Mask hygiene is very important to keep that in mind. The third thing is, if in doubt, please consult a dermatologist, because a lot of people get teeny rashes and what looks like acne around the mouth, and then they start using salicylic acid face washes and they start using acne based creams, when in fact this is not acne. It's a kind of eczema called perioral dermatitis or perioral eczema, and if you use acne based products on eczema, it actually ends up making this worse. So if in doubt, please consult a dermatologist. They'll be able to first diagnose if this is actually eczema, if this is some superficial folliculitis, or this is indeed acne, and they'll be able to guide you correctly in what skincare you need and how you can protect that. Alright. So, okay, so there's a lot of queries I'm getting on, baby products and anti-aging. Please do join. Sebamed does a lot of these talks and chats with a lot of dermatologists across India, where they speak about this all the time. Today, we are going to focus a little more on COVID and pandemic and COVID-related skincare, because that is what I've been given an opportunity to speak about. But yes, Nishchu Chabra, you were asking about anti-aging. If you do want to know more about aging, I do a lot of this stuff. You can go to my website, www.drsunaina.com. You can go to blogs. Under blogs, you'll find 40 different blogs on all kinds of skin related queries, including beauty related blogs and aging, anti-aging and cosmetic treatments. I also have a Facebook page. It's called Your Family Dermatologist. If you don't have the patience to read through a whole blog, you can get a lot of snippets. That page has been up since 2014. So almost every possible beauty related query you have, those queries you'll find answers to that there. So you can go through those, you'll get all of the answers that you need. Today I would like to focus a little more on COVID, because this is COVID special. We are in the middle of a raging second wave. So do bear with me. I'm mostly taking the COVID related queries. Alright. Yes, so someone has asked about hair routine and hair fall. So I just went through this, and probably you can go back through the video later because we just answered the query about hair. First and foremost, hair routine. One is improve your nutrition. Take supplements. There are biotin supplements. Your dermatologist can help you. They are available over the counter. You will not need a prescription. So biotin in 10 milligrams is ideal, especially if it comes in combination with zinc and copper, magnesium, selenium, amino acids. That will help you. There are caffeine based shampoo. Try the Sebamed anti-hair loss shampoo, that works brilliantly. And there are serums as well, medicated serums, but they are expensive. So before you invest money in those serums, please speak to a dermatologist, because it's not one formula that works for everybody. Certain cases of hair fall may require blood tests as well, because usually it is because of some internal causes why you're losing hair, and if you're just treating it externally, you may be wasting time and money. All right. Okay. Now let's see, are there any more queries? So we covered hair and we covered hand, and again, speaking about hair, one query that a lot of patients ask me during at the clinic is that, especially women with long hair, that when I go out, when I do need to go out in the pandemic for grocery store, or when I do need to come out to the hospital, I wear a mask, I wear gloves, I sometimes even wear a face shield. What about my hair? Because I see doctors covering up the hair and wearing the hair, disposable cap, and should I be covering my hair as well? So now about that, first and foremost, see, ideally, yes, you need to protect your hair. Now, men and women who have short hair, if you had to go out in a public space, in a somewhat crowded space, because of some emergency, when you come back, yes, you will need to wash your hair. If it becomes a frequent thing, or people like us who need to be out on a daily basis, yes, we actually just cover our head with a disposable cap. I've not done that today because I'm absolutely alone in my clinic today and I'm speaking to you, I want to look good. So yes, if daily washing can become a problem, because water in all metros is bad. It doesn't matter that Bangalore water is bad or Mumbai water is bad. Water is bad everywhere. You can use pH balanced, sulfate free, mild everyday shampoo. Sebamed has an everyday use shampoo. You can use it every day without damaging your hair. At the very least, women with long hair, you please at least tie up your hair in a tight bun so that your entire hair is not exposed. And don't use hair products. I mean, don't apply oil or leave on conditioners and gels when you go out, because that actually traps much more dust and dirt. So and I've seen a lot of people being very creative about it. If you feel silly wearing a disposable shower cap or something going out, I've seen men and women using really cool fashionable bandanas and headscarves and head turbans, and they cover the hair and they come and they just put the turban for wash, and that way they don't have to keep washing their hair as well. But yes, to answer your question, ideally when you're going out, it's not just your face and hands, you need to protect your hair as well, because hair traps a lot of germs and they stick to your hair, and then you need to wash it off if you need to keep yourself free and safe. All right. So what else? Any more queries? Let's see. So supplements we spoke about, hair we spoke about, mask acne we spoke about, hair, vaccines, who should not be taking the vaccine, recovery. Yeah. Now the other general question is basically, not about fads. So this is actually a question posed to me by younger dermatologists. And the last time I went to my salon to get a haircut, this was a question asked by me by the salon person, also by my hairdresser, that what's the fads that you're seeing, from your patients during the pandemic, where is everyone heading towards? So because one is people are scared to go to salons, and people are scared to go to the clinic itself, and and on the other hand, financial constraints as well. A lot of people have lost jobs or have taken heavy pay cuts. So what is the trend right now in terms of hair care during a pandemic or skin care during a pandemic? So the trend that I'm seeing that is a lot of people are, they're moving towards do-it-yourself stuff. There's a lot of interest in home facial and home chemical peels and home manicure, pedicure kits. And there's even interest in, home-based hair removal kits and home waxing and even home laser hair removal. But as a flip side of that, we're also seeing a lot of accidents. A lot of people, requesting emergency consultations because they tried something at home and they ended up burning their skin, or they ended up getting allergic reactions. That is a flip side of that. A lot of people saying that, because of financial constraints, they're not able to do procedures anymore. They're not able to do lasers and peels anymore. But now they're willing to spend more on skincare. They're willing to spend more on luxury skincare or good quality products. I don't want to use any more of the XY over-the-counter supermarket stuff, and I do want to spend on really good quality products like Sebamed. On the other hand, we are also seeing patients who are saying that, we used to spend so much on, movie outings and theaters and restaurants and going traveling and all that, and now all of that is cancelled. So there are other people who say that we might as well come and get something done for ourselves, get a little Botox or get a little skin tightening and stuff. So we see the trends changing, but there's a lot of interest now in do it yourself stuff and just buying stuff online and doing it. A lot of people asking me about what about jade rollers, and what about facial yoga, and what about Korean glass skin, and what about the 10-step skincare regime, and what about the 20-step skincare regime. So the skin fad is going there. Stuff that I can buy myself online, stuff that I want to experiment with, and stuff that I can do myself with. Always check with a dermatologist, because many of the times people don't have a clear idea what is their skin type and what will work for them, what won't work for them. Just because something worked brilliantly for your friend, it won't necessarily work for you. All right. So yes, there's one query about a lady speaking about hair, about how she had really lovely hair and it's gotten really dry and brittle, and she has spoken to nutritionists and dermatologists and nothing is helping. So can I take a biotin supplement? I mean, of course, if you've spoken to a dermatologist, then clearly they would have prescribed a biotin supplement for sure. And usually, see, when you go to a dermatologist, the protocol is anybody who has had hair fall for more than 6 months, they will get some blood tests done to check if there's any underlying nutritional deficiency or at least a thyroid problem. If you have any symptoms of probably an underlying hormonal imbalance, especially for female patients, if you get the history that this is a woman whose periods have been irregular, who has a lot of acne on the face, hair on the scalp is getting thin and hair on the face is getting thicker, having difficulty conceiving. So these are signs of underlying hormonal imbalance, in which case they may do a detailed hormonal assay as well. Those tests are a little more expensive, but they may be necessary, because if you do have a hormonal imbalance and that's not getting rectified, then it doesn't work. And then the next step is a medical treatment. Medical treatment, you have to be patient, and consistency is the key. So if you use your medications 3 days and then forget to take it 3 days, it doesn't work so well. Do the medical treatment, give it time. It usually takes 6 weeks to see the hair fall coming under control, and 4 to 6 months of treatment to see the hair is getting thicker and the volume is improving. I generally tell patients after 2 months of doing the treatment as well, if the hair fall itself is not coming under control, then the next step is to do PRP treatments. There are a lot of treatments. There is a laser comb, there is stem cells, there are growth factors and all that. But the PRP and hair transplantation is rarely only done in women. It's usually done in older women, or because it's very rare to see that extent of balding in women. But combination treatments usually work. Women who are not planning a pregnancy, they can go through hormonal treatment combined with nutritional supplements, combined with topical applications on the scalp, combined with PRP treatment. You combine more treatments and go through it for at least 4 to 6 months, and you will definitely see results. Treatment failure in hair loss can happen. Treatment failure can happen in any field of medicine. It can happen even in dermatology. But if in doubt, you get a second opinion, be persistent. There's always a solution to a problem. There's no problem for which there's absolutely no solution. Okay. So that's one query that keeps coming from time to time. And this is one more thing, and because it's again Ms. Priyadarshini's question about how no treatments have been working for me, that actually made me think of this. Is many times when no treatments are working, there could be underlying stress factors as well. I have had patients where absolutely no treatment worked, and as we got to know the patient over a matter of 2-3 months, we started realizing that there's a lot of there may be family issues or other issues leading to stress and anxiety. And what finally worked for the patient was antidepressants. So again, anti-anxiety medications, antidepressant medications will not show results in 2 weeks. The patients were on those medications for about 4 to 6 weeks, and finally when nothing else worked, it was the antidepressant medications and the anti-anxiety medications that finally controlled the hair fall. And this is something that's become even more prevalent in the pandemic. A lot of people asking that we feel extreme anxiety. Just the being isolated for so long, not being able to meet friends, not feeling fearful to hug people, to shake hands with friends, touching surfaces is now scary. The fear of losing loved ones, the fear of losing job. How do we cope with that? How do we feel better with that? So counseling also becomes an important part of the job that we do. So for starters, first and foremost, I have to be honest, even as doctors, even we feel that anxiety coming to work on a regular basis, because we never know when, despite all precautions, we'll fall sick. So what has helped is to keep in mind that no individual, no family is now unaffected completely, either physically or financially by this, that none of us are alone in this. We can't say we are in the same boat. We're not all stuck in the same, caught in the same storm. So keep in mind that we're all in this together, and the only way to survive is to be careful, but at the same time to remain positive and not to lose sight of things. The second thing that has helped is to keep yourself busy. So there is the routine humdrum stuff, the routine day-to-day stuff that we can do even in our sleep. But beyond that, find time to do something creative, to keep your mind and your creativity alive. Exercise is a tremendous stress buster. It really gets rid of a lot of negative emotions and anxiety. It helps you sleep better. Good sleep will also help with hair fall. Where nothing else is helping, sometimes you just need to sleep better. And that's how anxiety medications can also help with hair fall. What else? If you are lucky like me, you're staying in a apartment society which still allows you to go out running and cycling with your masks on, of course. You should take the opportunity, because it is always good to get some fresh air and sunlight hitting your skin on a daily basis. And fight the urge to give in to cravings to eat. So obesity is really increasing during the pandemic because nobody is getting enough exercise, and when we are stressed out, we eat to comfort ourselves. And obesity will then add on to our risk of falling ill during the pandemic. So if you can't give in, you do feel a strong craving to eat something or to indulge even though you're not hungry, then have some nuts, have some dry fruits, or have a piece of jaggery or dark chocolate maybe, instead of just having potato chips or something like that. And what else? It's important, I think, to laugh every day. It's difficult in these times, but watch some comedy shows, some stand-up comedies, some sitcoms, read some comic books, catch up with old friends, family members who always were able to make you laugh. Seek them out. Stay away from people who are very negative, who are very rude, who are needlessly paranoid, who bring you down a lot. And despite everything, also find some alone time. Consciously make an effort to cut out from social media and news for a few hours every day, because constant social media is also not a good idea, I think. Find some alone time to reflect, to meditate, to read. I think physical contact is also very important. I think a lot of us are really craving that physical contact. So, hold your parents' hands, hug your children. If you're married, you have a partner, have sex. If you're a bachelor staying alone, then seriously consider adopting a pet. Just having that physical contact also will calm you down. Remembering to laugh, remembering to exercise, remembering to sleep on time, having a routine. All of these things will help you as well. Just keep in mind that tough times will not last, but tough people will. Alright. So for all those people who were asking about the routine queries on fairness creams and conditioners and sunscreens and stuff like that. So I have we made a conscious effort that this talk is going to be on the pandemic, COVID, how does COVID affect our skin, how to recognize COVID related rashes, immunization, vaccines, COVID-related skin problems, mask acne, post-COVID hair fall, supplementation. We have stuck to that. If you had more queries which I was not able to address because of time constraints or because it was not within the topic today, you can go to my website www.drsunaina.com. In my website, you will find information about me, the work that I do, all the stuff that we do at the clinic, but you'll also find a segment called blogs. So you will find a lot of blogs. People are asking about my numbers. So the clinic numbers, my email contact, all of that are mentioned there. But if you go to blogs, you will find a lot of blogs on every topic, including skincare for your kids, skincare during pregnancy, nutritional care, hair care, beauty related blogs, anti-aging related blogs, sexual health. So you'll find a lot of blogs, allergies, kids allergies. So all of the queries that I couldn't answer, please go to my website and you will find a lot of reading information there. And for youngsters who usually don't have the patience to read very lengthy blogs, you can go to my Facebook page, Your Family Dermatologist. I've had the Facebook page for I think 6-7 years now. So there's tons of information there, small snippets on almost every query that I've had over the years. From shampoos to fungal infections to sexually transmitted infections, to pandemic related queries. So all of that. So you can go to, like I said, repeat my website, www.drsunaina.com. I am on Instagram as well, Sunaina Hamid. I'm not very active on Instagram. and my Facebook page is Your Family Dermatologist. Every possible query you could have about skincare for older people, from newborns to elderly people, skin diseases to cosmetic stuff, to all the fancy fads about Korean glass skin or gua sha and fads, to allergies and the medical stuff. You'll get all information there. And so with that, I think we will wrap up today's session. It's been wonderful. I think you've all been very active. Thank you for all your questions. Once again, my sincerest condolences for everybody who suffered a loss. We all have at this point. And please go ahead and get your vaccinations done aggressively, because that's the only thing that is going to help us avoid the inevitable third wave. I can only pray that there's going to soon be a vaccine for our children as well. So stay safe, people, and we'll all come through this. We are Indians after all. We are very resilient. We go through a lot of ups and downs, but we know how to crawl our way back as well. So thank you for joining me on a Sunday. I thank Sebamed India for this opportunity. I've really for a long time been wanting to speak about, something outside of the fairness creams and the sunscreens and moisturizers, and speak about the pandemic, because these are queries. I get emails on this every day, and these are queries that I have been wanting to come on a public platform and speak about it. So it's been nice getting to know you all. Have a wonderful Sunday. I hope you all stay safe. Bye bye.